Welcome to the Ratals.com installation guide videos, part 4, where we're going to go over setting up the accounts after the software has been installed. So we last ended with being on this page here on the ratalsdemo.com website, where we're going to set up our account now to get things going. And what we're going to do is we need to put in our database name here and our database username. And if you remember, we made our username, our database name, and username the same thing. And so I'm going to go over to my database itself, open this up here, and just click on the database. And I can get it from here, which is convenient. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And we're going to go over and we're going to paste it in and paste it in. At the time when we created the database, that username, we created a password for it. And I'm going to go ahead and put that password in here. And that was in an earlier video. If you don't know how to create a database with a password, connecting the user to it. Next, we're going to set up our site name. So our site name ends up kind of becomes like our logo up in the top left corner of the website. And so later we can add a logo if we want to, but for right now, just for getting it up, we let you set it up just with a name. And so we're just going to go ahead and just do Ratals Demo. And then we're also going to set this up on ratalsdemo.com. And you'll notice that I didn't have to fill that in. It recognizes that's the domain I'm on. And so it automatically filled it in. It also recognizes that we're on HTTPS, which we went over in earlier videos of making sure our certificate was installed. And then it's saying, let's create this site as a www in the domain. So if we don't want that, we can say none, and it's just going to be https:// in our domain. But it's pretty common for most websites to put www in the domain, so we're just going to leave it. I'm going to come back to this admin login at the end because there's a little bit to go over with that. The next one here is our site language. If your site's going to be written in English, you would leave it as English. If you're going to write it in Portuguese or Spanish, another language, you're going to want to switch it to your language. And what this is for is allowing the search engines to know what language your content should be in, and screen readers to when someone's reading or looking at your website with a screen reader, it allows it to know what language it's in to be able to read it. And of course, you have your time zone. You can select your time zone where you're at. And then we're going to set up here our authorized.net. So this is authorized.net. If you're not familiar with who they are, they're a gateway for charging credit cards for an e-commerce store for checking out. Currently, we're only set up with authorized.net in our software to save credit cards. And so if you're not with authorized.net, you'll need to be. In the future, we'll probably add more credit card processors where we can save cards. But for right now, this is what we have in here. But we don't actually, I should make this clear, we don't actually save cards in our database or in our software. What we actually do is send the card over when a customer's checking out. We send the card over to authorized.net, and authorized.net ends up taking that card, charging it. And if the customer selected that they want to save that card, then authorized.net saves the card in their database and sends back a customer profile that they created for the customer where it's being saved, and also a card ID number. And so the profile allows us to be able to put a whole bunch of cards under the customer if they want multiple cards. And then the card ID number says, hey, this card ID under this profile is the one we want to charge, but they hold the actual card number. We do not store cards in our system at all. It gets all pushed over to authorized.net. Now, the importance of staying on HTTPS, the reason why we worked on our certificate earlier, is what that does is it builds the communication to be secure between the browser and the server where it's being sent to authorized.net. So if you're not on HTTPS, it can be intercepted in the middle, and the information's not encrypted. And so being on HTTPS allows us to securely get the card over to authorized.net to process the card. So once they get the card, they process it, they send back to us the approval or not. And if the customer asks for it to be stored, they store it, give us back the IDs of how we can say, hey, charge this card for this customer. Next, hierarchy or flat URLs. In the SEO community, there's been a debate around this topic for a really long time. What are they? So I'm going to open up Notepad here, and essentially a flat URL, let's pretend we wrote a post and called it cool post, okay? And let's say we had a category just called cool, okay, / okay? And so if this is our category and this is our post, right? Now, if we say that we want to be on hierarchy URLs, what that means is our URLs are going to look like this in the browser. So we're going to see the category name, and then we're going to see the post name for a blog post as an example. But if we say, I don't want my categories to display in my URL, I want only just the post name to display, you can switch it to flat. So you can choose if you want it to be flat or hierarchy. Now, like I said, there's been a lot of argument in the SEO world. So if somebody comes to you and says, oh, you should have selected flat or you should have selected hierarchy. Now, I will say this. Our system does redirect everything to the opposite. So if you're on flat, it'll redirect all the flats to the hierarchy and vice versa. But you really want to avoid changing these, because if you start ranking for a whole bunch of terms in search engines and you start changing all your URL structure in your site, it could make you lose those rankings. And if they come back, it'll take time for the search engines to figure out, well, what should be ranking now. These opposite redirects are 301 redirects, meaning a permanent redirect to where the search engine does pass the ranking link juice flow over to the new structure you want your URLs to be. However, if you start ranking, it's best just to never change it. Why change something that's working? If you have a great reason for it, then maybe, right? But it does 301, just so you know. But by default, we set it to hierarchy, where we'll see the structure of the folders essentially like this, where it'd be like cool as a category, and then post. This is our default, so we'll just leave it there. Now, for cached results, this essentially means, do you want the website to load a record that's been saved that will load faster, because it doesn't have to get all the information out of the database. It literally just serves up like a result that was saved from the last time the URL was requested. And by default, our caching system saves for 4 hours, and it's going to automatically say, hey, the next time this URL is requested, we're going to recache that URL after 4 hours. So it'll never last more than 4 hours. But while we're doing this, I'm going to say no, because I don't want cache results to be displaying to us while we're building it out, because you could be looking at it and being like, well, why don't I see the right thing here? And it's because you're seeing an old version of the cache, not what's currently in the database. Now, when you're logged into the admin area in the back end, the caching system is turned off for the front end. So when you're saving things, it actually will show you the non-cache version, even if you have cache turned on, okay? When you're logged into the back end, it'll never use cache. And we built it that way on purpose, because if you're in the back end, you likely are going to want to see what it actually is in the front end currently, in case you're modifying things. So, but I'm going to say no while we're building this out. Next, we're going to build out our currency. And in currency, we can make our currency whatever we need it to be. So first we'll select our type. We'll put our type in here. So in North America, United States, we're USD. So you put your correct currency in there. It stands for United States dollar. And we use this dollar sign right here. Now, if your currency symbol went on the back, I'm going to take it off, and we would put it on the back. If you need a space between it, you would just do like that, put a space, okay? So you can build your currency out to however you want. If you use commas, decimals, let's go decimal, for your thousand separator, you just switch it out. And if you use commas for your fractional separator on the back end, which we call change in America, Northern America, it would just look like that. And then if you use more than two ending zeros, you can change it to up to 4 here, okay? So we use in America like this. That's our setup, right? So I'm going to leave it like that, but you can set your currency up to whatever you need. All right, next we're going to jump in to our email server setup. Now, if you remember when we were setting up our certificate, our SSL certificate, we saw that our mail client or our mail server URL was mail.ratalsdemo.com when we gave a certificate to it. So that's what we're going to put here because that's what sends our mail. And if you remember in the earlier videos, we created support as our email address. And so we're just going to put support in there for our email address because that's what we created. If you created something different, obviously you're going to want to put in here what you created. And then our username is just going to be our full email address. And then, of course, the password that I ended up creating when I created this email address. And this is why we created the email address earlier, so we could fill this in. Now, if you're with a bigger company, you'll know if you're on a relay or connector, this is where you whitelist IP addresses and domains so that you can have a full a connection for a whole bunch of email addresses without needing to put a ton of passwords in and usernames. And so you can leave these two fields empty here and check the box if you're on a relay or connector. Next down here, I'm just going to go ahead and put in some my information and to get our account set up. And I'm just going to put in some, this is a demo site. So just going to put in some filler information here. You should obviously put in real information in here. And for phone number, I'm just going to format it like we do in America here. That's how we format our phone numbers here in Northern America. And now, do you want this contact information right here to display on the website? If this is your personal residence that you're putting in here, you're probably not going to want that to happen, right? If it's a business, yeah, you probably do want it. Now, the person who's filling this out is probably not going to want their name on the website. So you'll notice here it says we don't put the first and last name on the website. It won't display on there. So it's just really the contact information. If this is company information, perfect, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just allow that to display on the site. Then I'm going to go ahead and create my username and my password. This is where I'm going to log into the backend. Okay, so now I have my username and password set up where we're going to log into the backend. And remember, I told you we'd come up here and talk about this for just a second. You can't have a login name called admin because it's too easy for hackers who are trying to get into your system to know, hey, I'm just going to go to admin or login or something like that and just start trying username and passwords to get into the backend. That's no good. And so we force you to pick a username or a login here, a URL for your login area of the backend so that it's not the same as everybody else who's installing this software, right? We want to make sure we're unique. And we kind of want to hide our door where you can try keys to log in to the backend, like with the username and password. Kind of want to hide it in the woods where someone's not going to find it to be able to try to put keys in the door, right? So we're going to go ahead and just, for my purposes, you don't do this, right? I'm just going to call it admin 1. Like I said, you can't use admin, but I'm going to call it admin 1. So it should just be something that's unique to you that you can remember to log in, right? Where someone's not going to be able to find it. It's just another security layer to try to prevent people from logging in. Now, we do know hiding things is not security, although if we can make it so it's harder to find, that much better. So we got it all filled in now. We're going to go ahead and hit create account. And this is going to run through and set everything up. Now, it could take between 10 and 20 seconds, which we can see right down here in our message, because it's setting up all of our databases and creating all the theme and stuff like that to make the front end load. So now we have our login page. In our next video, we're going to go into logging in, showing the front end, and kind of seeing some real general basic features of how to get started with it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.